Nitro with the nice flow. Y'all acting like y'all don't know. Stop acting like y'all don't know.
Joe Campbell.
Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Who the future? We the future. Who the future? Us. Causing chaos in the back of the bus. Get your hands up. We gon' show you how we buzz. Yeah. The future.
On a suddenly not so casual free Friday, it is Friday, November 18, 2022. It is CFB Knowledge for College. It is Sharky Waters Nation. 9 words of lifestyle. Ride the wave or get out of the water. It is the shark. It is the gun. Guns picks. A beautiful evening it is. What's going on, brother?
Beautiful evening, but a chilly evening at that. I cannot believe there is only 2 regular season weeks left in the college football season. Then we get into conference play, and then it's bowl season. This season's going way too fast for me. I'm getting depressed. I'm getting sad. Thankfully, I have college basketball to kind of comfort me in my woes and sorrows. I'm ready to get to this card. I love this card. I'm gonna give some bangers. We didn't do well last week, but we're gonna bounce back this week as always. Let's go.
Yeah, and of course, a snapshot to stay in the course. And of course, college football, NFL, both so sensationalized with most of the games on one calendar day. A project, it is an opportunity to dominate. Guns picks. TCU, the Horned Frogs, coming on the road. 10-0 straight up in the campaign. Number 4 in the country. Flirting with disaster at Baylor, Waco, Texas. Baylor off a dud last week against Kansas State, symptomatic to 2 road wins coming home. Home game 1, it applies to every sport. Home game 2, revenge game. Does TCU lose outright for the first time this season? What's going on here?
I think I might be addicted to fading TCU, and TCU keeps biting me in the ass in multiple ways, either by killing quarterbacks or scoring a meaningless touchdown on the road that means nothing to anybody. Why you doing this? Kill the clock like normal teams. Let's talk about this game for a second. Yeah, Baylor coming off a bad home loss, 31-3, minus 99 net yards, minus 2 turnover ratio for the game. Complete flat spot for them. It was actually predicted. If you followed me on my Slack channel, you would have saw I had a big play on Kansas State. Now, let's talk about TCU. They're a different team on the road. Only a plus 9 point differential on the road where they're plus 27 net yards. At home, plus 19 point differential, plus 191 net yards. Very different dynamic when they go on the road. But Baylor, they are a home team. They love home very much, even though they lost 31-3 last week. Plus 14 point differential at home, plus 139 net yard average. So TCU, while winning the game last week, they only had 283 yards versus of total offense, 3.6 yards per carry on the ground, which is well below their season average. And Baylor's defense is statistically better than Texas's defense if you do a complete comparison. So what I believe, here is the spot to fade TCU. This is the last spot. They got Iowa State next week. I don't think Iowa State is going to put up the gusto against TCU, and I think TCU is playing at home in that game. So TCU's pretty much got the Big 12 championship spot wrapped up. I know they want to get in the college football playoff. They're still motivated for that, but they're going against a Baylor team in revenge. Baylor is 21-4-2 following an ATS loss, 19-7 against the spread in their last 23 games overall, 9-3 against the spread at home, and they just lost last week. Statistically, we got to be taking Baylor, and I'm doing it here. I got Baylor plus 3, and this is a 2.5 unit play for me.
Sharp stuff. And as you mentioned, at some point, it's got to come to an end. I do think it could come to an end here. And speaking of coming to an end, I don't think we would have had this conversation early season talking about the UConn Huskies on an ATS heater, a straight-up win rate heater, and really Jim Mora going in there and unsurprisingly reinventing a program that has been a perpetual and perennial bottom feeder for years. However, coming off a home sequence of success at Army, West Point, New York, high noon, the home team, Guns picks, an official.
Listen, I'm fading UConn this week. We had them last week, and guess what UConn did? They stood the F up, and they came out with an outright win over a Liberty team at home that was 8-1 straight off, coming off a big victory over Arkansas. It was a perfect spot to take UConn. Jim Moore's got those boys cooking, but I'm fading them this week, and I'm taking Army. Let's talk about Army here. They're coming off back-to-back losses to Air Force and Troy. And it was all close games. A total of 7 points in both of those spots they lost by. They lost to Troy last week, 10-9, a good Troy team for the G5s, winning the net yardage battle in the process, plus 93 net yards. Army, like all armed forces teams, they love to run the ball. They have 5.6 yards per carry this season, 6.5 yards per carry at home. UConn, they struggle at stopping the run. They give up 5 yards per carry on the road to their opponents, and they give up 150 yards or more on the ground to 7 of their games this season. So they've only played 10 games. They've given up over 150 yards to their opponents in 7 of those games. And this is an Army team that will just run it up and run the ball and control the clock on you. This is simply a UConn fade here. UConn had a monumental win to get bowl eligible. They haven't been bowl eligible since probably 2008 when they made that run, got a New Year's Six, spot in there, and they got crushed by Oklahoma. I know that, and you see what the line's telling you here. Army's 3-6 straight up. They can still get to a bowl game. They still have 3 games left, so I think Army is going to still play highly motivated here. And I'm going to be taking a legitimate shot here. The line pretty much is telling me a story here. I think people are going to see what happened to UConn last week. It was a high story on ESPN. Everybody loves Jim Moore and what they've done to that program. I think this is a perfect spot for a letdown from UConn on the road, which they play at their worst ball. Give me Army minus 9.5, and this is a 2-unit play.
Love it. Great stuff there. Continuing the process of domination on a suddenly not so casual Friday will be Saturday, November 19, 2022. CFB Knowledge for College Week 12. It is Sharky Waters Nation. Now it's a lifestyle. Ride the way we got out of the water. West Virginia back home in Morgantown, facing the aforementioned Kansas State Wildcats, coming in here in a road sequence off a huge win last week. Go back earlier in this campaign. A road sequence did not end well in the second game in that sequence at TCU, 38-28. Non-cover, Guns picks. The home team plus 7.5 at official.
Listen, Kansas State coming off a big win over Baylor last week, 31-3, plus 99 net yards, like I mentioned before. This is a perfect flat spot for the Kansas State Wildcats, and I'm going to be going with West Virginia at home plus 7.5. Listen, West Virginia is coming off a big home win themselves. They beat Oklahoma 23-20 on the second leg of their home stretch, and they're going to be playing at home again where they're comfortable and seated perfectly for a revenge spot. Kansas State on the road, plus 16 net yard average, and typically plays to the level of their competition on the road. If you actually look at the statistics, the numbers are very close. This is also a revenge game for Western Virginia. They lost to Kansas State 34-17 as 6-point dogs last season. West Virginia has covered 4 out of the last 5 matchups. So it's just a perfect situational standpoint here. West Virginia has the edge as they play their best ball at home versus a Kansas State team off a big road win with a rival on deck in Kansas. I think this may be one of those you may want to take a little bit of the unit and sprinkle it on the money line here. We might see West Virginia do a similar situation that Baylor was in when they had to go to West Virginia in another letdown spot, and I kind of compare those two teams together. Give me West Virginia plus 7.5, and it's a 2-unit special.
Love 2-unit specials. Love 2 p.m. games. Love 2 p.m. games in the American Athletic Conference. Next pick, Guns picks. East Carolina coming home against Houston, -6. A Houston team, Dana Holgorsen, unregulated on the road to say the least. Last road game gave up 77 points at SMU. I didn't know if I was watching basketball or football. I don't know if Houston knows what sport they're playing on the road. East Carolina, a bye team all year, a revenge game, an official.
You're right about ECU being a buy team. We're buying them right again. ECU is 7-3 against the spread in their last 10 games this season, and I'm going to be riding them here as a favorite. ECU -6. Listen, ECU is coming off a tough road loss versus Cincinnati, 27-25. Despite dominating the net yards, by the way, they actually dominated plus 148 net yards for the game, plus 1 turnover ratio. Still lost the game. And I think it kicked them out of contention for a possible spot in the AAC championship. Both teams offensively, very similar statistically, but ECU has a defensive edge here. They only give up 383 yards of total offense to their opponents, 3.5 yards per rush, 263 yards passing. Now, Houston on the other side, they give up 441 yards per game, 4.1 yards per carry, 292 yards per game passing. In 2021, ECU lost to Houston 31-24 as 13.5-point road dogs. So you have the revenge factor in there. Now they're sitting here in a full swing, -6 favorite at home. That's an 18-point swing, a 17.5-point swing. It's pretty remarkable from one year to the other. The home team in this situation, 5-1 straight up, 4-2 against the spread in the last 6 meetings. ECU is 15-5 against the spread in their last 20 games. I mean, this is a team that covers for you. This is a team that makes money for you. So why would you ever fade them here? ECU, like I said, coming off the tough road loss after a bye, which they should have planned a little bit harder for this one. I think they played their best ball versus Cincinnati. They're going to come in here pissed off, going to play a Houston team that I'm not certain that Hogerson inspires this team anymore. May lose his job at the end of the season, although they've had a nice little win streak to kind of peak at the back end of the season. But Houston 2-6 against the spread in their last 6 games. So take that into account here. ECU's favored for a reason. Give me ECU -6, 2-unit special.
Next play, Pac-12 Conference, 2:15 Eastern, an odd start time. I believe this is 11:15 a.m. in Arizona. Guns picks. Fading Oregon State. We've been doing this all year. You buy them in Corvallis in their home stadium where they're an absolute sustainable juggernaut. They go on the road, particularly on Saturday specifically. They did cover at Washington on a Friday night, which we can throw out as a situational outlier. This team does not perform well. A trap game in between a win last week against California. And I'll throw it to the gun for an official. A big game next week, I believe.
Yes, they do have a big game next week versus Oregon at home, by the way, in Corvallis. But like I said before, like I said last week, we were on Oregon State -13.5. And guess what happened? Absolute blowout because they were playing in Corvallis. But this time, we're going to be rolling with the Arizona State +7.5 versus Oregon State. Now, Arizona State is coming off a back-to-back losses to UCLA, Washington State. Good teams in the Pac-12. Losing the net yards battle in both games, but it was still relatively close and competitive. Oregon State coming off a big home win, like we just talked about before, 38-10, plus 206 net yards for that game. It was absolute domination from the Beavers. Now you have Arizona State. They can pass the ball. They're actually going to be starting a new quarterback in this situation, Trenton Bourguet. Hopefully I said his name right. I know his brother is a quarterback in the MAC. He's getting the start here in this game over Emory Jones. Check out his stats. 71.5% completion rate, 8.1 yards per attempt, 8 touchdowns, 4 INTs. This is an improvement and an upgrade at quarterback than Emory Jones. Oregon State on the road, like we said, not as good. -6 point differential, -23 net yard average on the road. Oregon State, like we said, they have a rival on deck. It's a typical trap spot, typical sandwich game, and they will overlook this Arizona State team because, quite frankly, coach has been fired. They've been using the interim coach. The team has virtually been directionless all year, but I think Arizona State will step up in their last home game of the season. Oregon State's overvalued here, in my opinion, so I'm going to be rolling with the dog. And actually, I got it at +7.5. The line right now is +8. Doesn't matter. I think it's all above the 7 is great. Give me Arizona State plus 7.5, plus 8, 2-unit special.
Final play, 7 p.m. ABC Sports. Big 12 football yet again. Throwing it back to the gun. Oklahoma at home. Big time intra-state rivalry. And a spot to dominate. The chat wants to talk about it. They like Oklahoma State. The gun, you got to break them the bad news here. What's going on? 7 p.m. ABC Sports in the Big 12.
I mean, come on, guys. Come on. Why is Oklahoma favored in this spot? Let me tell you why. I'm going to be rolling with Oklahoma State, and I know the line right now is probably -7, -7.5, depending on what books you got. I got it at -6.5 here, and it's a 2-unit play for me. Listen, Oklahoma coming off 2 tough losses by 3 points to Baylor, 3 points to West Virginia, winning the net yardage battle in both contests. Now, Oklahoma State is coming off a home win to Iowa State, 20-14, despite -89 net yards in that game. Oklahoma State, you look at their statistics, they are just regressing badly. If you actually look at the sample from the last 4 games, they have a -14-point differential, 124 net yard average, and a -124 net yard average, -1 turnover ratio in that span. They also have been bad on the road, a -15-point differential on the road, -113 net yard average, and they're 1-3 straight up on the road. Now, Oklahoma's defense is their weak spot of stopping the run. They do give up 4.2 yards per carry to their opponents, over 200 yards rushing in 5 out of the last 7 opponents. Luckily, Oklahoma State is a passing team, not a running team. They average 3.1 yards per carry on the ground and 3.1 on the road as well. This is a revenge game. If you actually watch Bedlam last year, Oklahoma State did win that game, a game they needed to get into the Big 12 championship and have a potential spot in the college football playoff that they narrowly missed because Alabama did beat Georgia. They beat them 37-33, snapping a 6-game win streak for Oklahoma in the series. Oklahoma was a 4.5-point dog in that game last year, and now they sit. Oklahoma, was a 4.5-point dog. Now they sit as a 7-point, 6.5-point favorite at home. Oklahoma is also playing for their bowl eligibility. I don't know if that's going to be a motivation for them because this is kind of a letdown year, but that could be another motivational factor for Venables in his first season with the Sooners. They seem to be improving as a team overall when you actually look at their statistics. And you have an Oklahoma State that's just regressing, and they basically have to rely on Spencer Sanders to carry them across the finish line game after game after game, and he is playing hurt, in my opinion. The line is telling you a story here, folks. There's a reason why Oklahoma is favored here, so I'm going to be riding them. Give me Oklahoma -6.5, another 2-unit play.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to the chat. Obviously, college football, I made the comment going back a few minutes. You get one game a week. There is a lot of outlierish nature to results, and you see it every week. You see turnovers. You see just one-off plays where teams go deep. They go to the house, and it disrupts the entire game, which is also why when evaluating college football and NFL prognostication, it's really hard to look at efficiency rate in 1 to 2 weeks, let alone zooming into one game. The best win rate in the world is established over 10 to 20 years. And of course, it is the shark in the gun. I'm running a plus 1.5 unit campaign. Can't say it's my best, but we're working on it. And as Pat Kappa says, a lot of these games, the books have missed the lines. And when books are missing lines, that tells you how abstract and inconsistent the games have been this year. We're doing our absolute best, and we love you guys for sticking with us all year. Second to last show, we will be on here next Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. Guns picks, 6 top plays, 12 noon, Baylor plus 2.5, Army -9.5, fading UConn, obviously scorching hot at home, coming on the road. West Virginia plus 7.5, in conference, Big 12 fading K-State off a big win last week. ECU fading Dana Holgorsen, as Guns mentioned, probably fired after this season. Just horrendous, lackluster, very, very poor, specifically defensively on the road. Also in the first half. I look at ECU in the first half here as a corollary to how they've come out in previous road games. Arizona State catching Oregon State on the road, where you want to fade Oregon State at all points in time. And of course, aforementioned, just recently discussed game, Oklahoma at -6.5, -7 now. A 1-unit play for, a 2-unit play for the gun. Guns picks, 20 minutes in the books. Free Friday, week 12, November 18th, 2022. CFB Knowledge for College, the Shark and the Gun. Close them out with some words: lifestyle, domination, and abundance. A pleasure doing business as always. We thank you guys in the chat. Let's absolutely go.
Listen, I gave a 6-pack of plays here, but if you want to see my full cards, all you have to do is click the link in my bio. That takes us to the Slack channel. It's absolutely free to join. Just go check it out. I have, I think, probably 10 plays in there right now, and I'm absolutely locked in. I get the lines early. I make sure everybody in there is fully engaged and get the best numbers possible. So please check that out if you want to. And also check us out Sunday, 10 a.m. with the Circa Millions NFL show. It's me, it's Shark, and it's the Odds Fellow. The 3-pack of Sunday Sharps, giving you the best content available in NFL plays. So good luck with your plays. Let's dominate. Let's cash. And as always, let's keep dancing.